All right, the judge made a ruling today. Obviously, everybody knows about it. And the one thing that no one's really talked about that I've seen and I wanted to discuss is what the judge felt about the strength of the case, because that was why he took so long making his ruling. If if he just was going to make the ruling based on the things that we talked about today, which is the lies and all that stuff, then he could have made that ruling right away, because that was all information he had in his hands. In fact, he knew it. It was in his head. So obviously, he was going a little farther. He wanted to know how strong the case was before he decided whether to release George or not. And I think he felt that if the case was truly strong, and now we have a hint that George might have been thinking of fleeing, then it would be prudent not to release him under those circumstances. So that's why the judge took all this time to review the evidence and decide whether he thought George had a good chance at the stand your ground defense. And if he does think, and if he does agree with O'Mara about that, because remember, O'Mara said that George would most likely not spend any time in jail because he's going to be using the self-defense claim, stand your ground. So that's why the judge had to look at that case. And that's why he dug and spent all that time. Now, what we heard today from the judge was a judgment that he already had, and he could have given us that very day. But he didn't, and the reason for it is because the evidence that he needed to review, he hadn't seen yet. And so he went to the defense and to the prosecution, said, make your best case, because if you want me to find for your defendant, I'm going to have to see some evidence that this is really a weak case like you say it is. So he pointed out the witnesses that were the ones that he felt were the strongest for his client. Once the judge looked at all that information, and I believe he came to a conclusion on Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. He said that he was going to rule on Thursday. I believe it was Tuesday. He said, I'll have a ruling on Thursday. And of course, Wednesday was a holiday. So he had already ruled, and I believe that he came to the conclusion that the case is very, very weak. In fact, there's no case at all. We know that. He could be a biased judge and see things in a different way, but it's not going to help. But the reason I say this is he didn't discuss the criminal case. The prosecution spent a lot of time pointing out how strong their case was, and they really tried to make the judge agree with them that the case was strong. But that never happened. In fact, the judge only said that one little thing, and that was the case will live or die on that claim of self-defense and stand your ground. That's it. He didn't say whether it looks like they have a good case or not. And we know that he has no problem saying whether the case is strong or not, because remember what he did last time when he was talking about the case of the perjury case. He said they have a strong case. So that's why he revoked the bond. Right? So if he revoked the bond because they had a strong case there, why wouldn't he keep the bond revoked based on the criminal case being strong? Well, I'll tell you why. In the beginning, he set the bond at $150,000 based on what he knew of the case. It was pretty obvious, straightforward. He had heard the information from the DA's office, and as of now, we know that there are no claims by the prosecution that the police department or the DA's office investigated improperly. Remember, that was the original claim, that the police department messed up so bad that we have to come in with a special prosecutor and redo the whole thing. Well, after they did that, they found out the police did everything right, and there are no claims of police misconduct at this point. So all this is fluff. It's all a waste of time. If we know that the police did the right thing, and we know that the DA's office did the right thing, and there's nobody here making any claims that they did something wrong, because if there is, I'm not hearing it. I would like to hear if anyone has any evidence that the police department did their investigation improperly, or the DA's office. If you can show me any evidence to that effect, I would love to see that. Otherwise, we're all going to have to agree that the DA's office and the police chief all agreed that this case should be left as a self-defense, stand your ground case. So, anyhow, I felt like the judge had made some mistakes in his ruling, and I'll talk about those later. But for right now, I just wanted to say I think George really won big, because the judge found nothing in the way of a negative towards the criminal case. And whatever happened after that night of the 26th, I'm not even slightly worried about it. If he lied about something, not worried about it. If they've got an issue with, if they want to charge him with perjury, go right ahead. Not an issue. But you're not going to put him away for life for defending himself. That ain't going to happen. And I would certainly think that any perjury charge would be reconsidered, seeing that this case should not even have come to trial. There should have been no money to lie about. You know, if the president and Eric Holder and the governor had all stayed back and just did their job and shut the hell up and keep your nose where it belongs, none of this would be a case. We wouldn't have had all this happening. It would have been done. George would be at his job right now, like he's supposed to be, in debt, making payments on his vehicles, just like he always was. But because of what you guys have done and all this negativity, guess what? He's paid off all his debts. He's got money in the bank. And as far as we can see, he's going to be a rich man for the rest of his life. Thank you.